Welcome to an all-new Lay It Omni. Allow me to lay it on you.
Hello Internet, my name is Omni. I'm here to talk to you guys about the male loneliness epidemic TM. I feel like these are one of those hot topic debates that I've been purposely staying out of because, to be honest, I've been too lonely to care. But recently I've undergone a very ginormous transformation in my life where I've explored myself more deeply. I evaluated what it means to be alone versus being lonely. I've been studying the concept of emotional sovereignty. I've been researching attachment styles, trauma, philosophy, relationship dynamics, etc., etc. Essentially dramatically increasing my overall self-awareness and, as a result, my understanding of others. I think it's safe to say that once again my opinion on this matter will be the only opinion that matters. In this video, I'll be exploring and reviewing the public general understanding of the male loneliness epidemic and kind of what it means, since I've seen a lot of different definitions about this concept being tossed around. After that, I'll drop a few of my own random thoughts about the situation in no order, and at the end, I'll be responding to some of your own opinions, takes, and perspectives on the matter and have a nice little open discussion. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what the male loneliness epidemic is, so you can assert your superior knowledge of the subject over those who don't. Jokes aside, the goal is to dip our toes into the topic and just touch a little bit of everything, okay? A lot of what we'll be discussing can be talked at great length, but for now, I'm thinking let's just kind of keep things on the surface. Here's Chase, okay? Here's the fluffy mean one, got the angry grumpy face, okay? I showed you my Chase, all right? So you guys got to drop a like and subscribe to the video, okay? For him, do it for him. Anyway, as you guys can tell, this is going to be a nice spicy meatball, a big chungy wungy. So sit back, relax, put your feet up, and yeah, allow me to lay it on you. So first, let's actually break down what everyone is talking about when they say the male loneliness epidemic, because there's a lot of layers to this thing. In the broadest sense, the male loneliness epidemic is basically the idea that men more than ever before are struggling to form and maintain quote-unquote meaningful connections, whether that's friendships or romantic relationships or even just a basic sense of their own personal belonging on this tiny rock we call Earth. As I said, for some people it's about friendship. They'll point out that fewer men today report having close friends, that male groups are shrinking, and that a lot of guys don't even have someone they feel comfortable opening up to. This then opens up another can of worms where people argue if it's even possible for a man and a woman to have a strictly platonic friendship. I ain't touching in this video, okay? We'll save that for another one. But this then leads to the concept of romance and dating, which is now creating what people are saying is the rise in single men. Apparently, from the past couple of years, men are becoming more increasingly single. Some because they can't find a partner, and some because they simply just do not want a partner. Within the same vein, a lot of people are talking about the internet and social media and swipe culture and how that's impacting men as well. A lot of people feel like modern technology has essentially created a rift in how relationships are formed. There are arguments that women in this era have access to a larger portion of men, giving them more options to choose a mate, and those mates being the top 10% of men who are essentially just taking all the women. Again, perspectives, okay? This is just what some people believe or are saying, okay? There's theories, a lot of them circulating. Some men are feeling like in this specific era that their existence is being portrayed more and more as a threat as the concept of misogyny continues to expose men as dangerous, not important, or not even needed. Women are creating movements that detach themselves from the societal pressure to find a husband, get married, and have kids. And as a result of all of these tiny micro movements and adjustments over time, a huge chunk of men feel completely left behind in modern relationships. So you got friendships, you got dating and romance, and then you got mental health, okay, and men's relationships with themselves and their own brain. This isn't the part where loneliness is just someone feeling bad for not having a girlfriend, but starts bleeding into more dangerous territory like depression, anxiety, and even causing physical health problems. Although the concept of mental health and seeking therapy is getting more and more popularized, men are still crashing out and having canon moments that lead them to trying to find their worth on this planet. If we're taught that being a man means being tough, then what happens when we're not tough? If we're taught that being a man means being a provider, then what happens when we can't even provide for ourselves? Simply put, if we're being taught that being a man means anything, then what happens when we're none of those things? Most importantly, the question that no one's asking is, why are men believing that they have to be taught to be themselves? Literally all this shit is intertwined, and each question or topic about it can be broken down into like extreme larger discussions. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that when people talk about the male loneliness epidemic, okay, we're not all talking about the same thing. Based on who you ask, you'll probably get a different answer to this question. And then also based on who you ask, you'll get different answers to said question. Hell, some people believe this is all just made up and that the male loneliness epidemic doesn't even exist. So as you guys can see, it's a lot and we've still barely even touched the subject, but if you're coming into this blind, you probably have a little bit more understanding of the topic. Now, before we get into your thoughts, okay, I had asked this question on Twitter and oh my God, it went viral and there's a lot of opinions that we're going to go over. But first, I just want to leave you guys with a quick 5 random points I just want to bring up, okay? It's in no order of importance. It's just things at the top of my head that I thought about that I let you guys know. Number 1, I think most people approach the male loneliness epidemic based on how it affects them personally. What it means to them and how they're affected becomes the only perspective sometimes because most people are unable to think outside of themselves, empathize, and see how things affect others. Most human beings lack empathy. I don't think there's any surprise there. Number 2, I think many people, both men and women, think that this doesn't impact them simply because they're in a relationship of some sort. This is a trap because once relationships end and breakups occur, a lot of men experience that cannon moment that can lead to otherworldly levels of crash out. And a lot of men hit rock bottom, they're now exposed to their voids that was being created in the relationship. And instead of learning how to fill those voids through self-awareness, self-discovery, and self-love, most men will usually fill that void with another form of external validation, usually in the form of another relationship, maybe some Andrew Tate rabbit hole, sometimes just a general hatred for women. They crash out, they look for guidance, they see a red pill, they see the gym, they never want to feel this way again, and they run from the feeling of pain and hurt and vulnerability. And in worst case scenarios, and this one's pretty common as well, but a lot of men just sit in loneliness, okay? They just exist until some of them unfortunately delete themselves. Number 3, men are also lonely while they are also in relationships. I would argue that feeling alone while being physically next to someone feels more lonely than just being physically by yourself. The inability to connect or feel seen while you're in the presence of a person you're disconnected from hits like a freaking truck, and I'm sure most of you guys have experienced this at one point in your life. Number 4, you have a lot of men who have no experience with relationships, okay? Some men are late bloomers and don't actually get into the game until much later in life. That lack of experience usually creates anxiety and false understandings of what it really means to be in a relationship. Without that experience, oftentimes it becomes difficult for men to understand women and relationship dynamics as a whole. You can learn a lot about yourself when you're in a relationship. The way I see it, men and women, all humans have to experience that canon moment in relationships, you know? In order to learn and grow more as a human being, we have to interact with other human beings, and sometimes those interactions expose some of our voids or our weaknesses or the things we don't love about ourselves through the actual process and experience. People can tell you left and right how relationships work, how emotions work, how feelings work, right? But once you're actually in it, it's a completely different ball game. You can have all the emotional intelligence in the world and it probably will not prepare you for the real thing. It'll help greatly. But yeah, it hits different when it actually hits different. And number 5, okay, and this one's a big one, but you have a lot of men that lose themselves in relationships. Essentially, their entire self-worth becomes tied to their partner. Some men live literally only for women, and in the process of obsessing over women, they stop obsessing over themselves, their own lives, their own needs and wants as a human being without a partner present. As men abandon themselves, they slowly become codependent, not even realizing that, and that fear of being alone can manifest in ugly ways. So those are just 5 random points. Okay, I literally could sit here all day and list out more and more and more. I can talk about the pandemic. Bro, I can be here all day, but I do feel like at the core, a lot of men are struggling with a lack of self-awareness of oneself, often due to societal structures teaching men to suppress or even villainize certain emotions that they don't actually discover until much later in life, if ever. There's also the lack of inability to truly empathize with others beyond just the surface level. There's also a lack of self-love and self-worth that's not to be confused with ego or arrogance. There's also a lack of direction and guidance when men are trying to find themselves when they're at their lowest points. And I think there's a lack of being understood and feeling visible, seen, validated, and safe. What sucks is that there's a lot of victims and a lot of pain, both from men and women when it comes to this subject. A lot of people who have been hurt by others and they don't know what to do with that hurt. That hurt sometimes turns into rage or anger or hate. And yeah, man, it's wild. So I had made this tweet the other day. I said, working on a video talking about the male loneliness epidemic, and I'm interested in some of your takes. drop them here, and I'll read off and respond to a few in the video, and I encourage women to chime in too, okay? And this guy, 400, almost 500 freaking replies, right? This bad boy was pumping, and there's a couple opinions in here. We're going to read them off, okay? So get your popcorn, okay? Because some of the takes are kind of wild, but I'm open to all interpretations. I want to hear what people have to say. So my guy, the Act Man, he said, honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with how modern technology is meant to isolate us and make us dependent on it rather than other people. Scared to approach women in public? No need. Just use Tinder. Now you don't have to develop those social skills anymore. I would agree that a lot of these apps, the modern technology thing that we talked about that basically separates the human to human experience into kind of just chats and DMs and sliding into messages and stuff, okay? Back in the day, right, there was none of that. You would just literally call somebody on the phone or you go meet with them in the mall, right? And then it started to progress where the layers of actually having human-to-human interaction became more increasingly gapped to the point where now people meet up and they're just socially freaking awkward. If you wanted a spouse back in the day, you literally had to approach a human being. You had to walk up into him and say, hi, my name is Steven, and I would like to date you. I would like to take you. And that was it. If you didn't do that, then you'd be alone forever. So that was a part of the program. Now there's layers on layers on layers behind it. And the whole concept of, being scared to approach women in the first place is not new. But with the internet, a lot of people are seeing men who are trying to approach women in public failing or also being made fun of, right? So they're kind of like, now they're creating anxiety that they don't want to actually experience that themselves and get recorded and be put on the internet, right? It's adding layers of anxiety that was already kind of pre-existing. My boy, Roberto Blake, he had a lot to say on here. We'll try to go through it really quickly. Increased social media and online gaming have eliminated the IRL friend groups that organically formed in the 90s and early 2000s, okay? Suggesting that, people are just kind of getting together in Discords and playing video games with each other on the internet versus coming together and having actual events. Like back in the Super Smash Brothers days, there would be like 20 niggas in the basement playing video games. They were all just there. Now you can just play Slippy online and you never actually have to see a person. He also says the increase in hookup culture increased the pressure of have your own place. Back in my day, it was common for guys to have roommates all the time through most of the 20s. You don't live on your own. You live with your boys or at home until you're in a committed relationship. When you move in with the girl, if you break up, your friend or friends move in and cover the rent, or you give up the apartment. There wasn't a big thing of single guys having to place all to themselves if they didn't come from money and women didn't expect it. Essentially saying that there was a culture where men were together more. There was a community where I would say that men don't just go off and get their own place and that's it, right? They either still lived at home or they had a group of men still, which still created those friendships, suggesting that a lot of men are losing the friendships between men to men because they're just simply jumping off and trying to find a spouse or a mate as soon as possible. Jose, the VR tech, he said, internet-driven male loneliness epidemic is the result from emotional grifters who are fully aware that it's incredibly common for young men and women to make sense of it all during their formative years. However, they often lack effective role models at home. This is particularly prevalent when one comes from a loving family that unintentionally enable uncontested interaction with the outside world, such as friends, TV, internet, music, school, etc. Essentially saying that all of us as human beings, we have a moment in our lives when we're coming to life, when we're learning about ourselves and we're breaching away from our parents. And as we start that part where we're kind of learning more about ourselves and trying to make sense of it all, there is people on the internet who's trying to tell you exactly how to make sense of it. But it's, on purpose. It might be a little bit more predatory in nature, probably suggesting that you're weak or that you're not strong enough or that you need to do this or that you need to do that. And then it creates a capitalist mindset that you need to come into this rabbit hole in order to give me money during your coming to life phase. And without a role model, like if you don't have a good dad or parents to kind of help guide you, well, then you end up finding that guidance in other ways. One of mine was anime. I found a lot. I know it's weird. I know it's whack, whatever, but a lot of my guidance of how to become a good person or be strong was shonens. It was just like, don't give up, get stronger, keep fighting, be a good dude. I learned a lot from stories, from anime to kind of, it might sound kind of weird, but when you have nothing else, then you find anything that you can latch on to. I have been raw dogging life my entire life. I have no male mentors in my life. So I have to try to parent myself, and this is why a lot of men might fall themselves into a place where they might be trying to parent themselves as well, get a little bit stunted because they didn't get this when they were early, and now they're kind of just now figuring out in their mid-30s. Kenny said people want to blame men with who set the system up, quote, as if most men alive are in any way the deciders of that system, nor are they the primary benefactors of it. I'm assuming that Kenny is talking about the patriarchy. We are quicker to pick an enemy to blame than try to understand the problem and improve things for everyone. So yeah, there's the whole argument of the patriarchy and how men have created the patriarchy, right? But like, I didn't create it. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you didn't just go home. You're not at home right now writing the book of patriarchy and trying to figure out, a lot of people don't even know what the patriarchy is until it's already too late and they've already been subjected into it, i.e. self-awareness. And as many people have stated, sometimes the patriarchy or how we live doesn't always benefit men as well. Hence why you have, men deleting themselves left and right. I think it's still important to call out, right? I think if you lack self-awareness, sometimes you don't actually gain awareness until someone else tells you, right? You don't realize that your world is this small until you meet another person who has a bigger world or a bigger understanding or more empathy to kind of show you. It's hard to know that you're missing something if you truly believe that you have most, if not all of the information that you thought was there. But the patriarchy is interesting, right? Because you're exposed to it, you live in it. And to be honest, like if you do want to fight back on it, you're not going to do it until much later because you're not going to understand what it is until you've already been subjected to it. Pronounced Yapper said, working all the time at a soul draining corporate job so you can have worth and then not having time or energy to go out and try to meet new people is definitely a big factor to the loneliness epidemic. This is also true as well, and it's the reason why birth rates in Japan and some of the other countries where the work culture is extremely strong is getting low. Fertility rates, from what I've been understanding, 25 has been slowly dipping for a myriad of reasons, but that whole capitalism work hard culture thing gives a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot less energy to do anything except for just go home, play video games, escape, and go to sleep. The economy is a very huge thing because for millennials, trying to survive in this economy is very freaking difficult. It's not like what it was for our parents and the boomers, okay? People were buying houses and having 6 kids at the age of 25, right? Now, people were like in their 30s, still don't own a home, still leasing, still trying to rent, trying to find something without having any kids because they can barely afford it in this economy. Here's another take. This is fun. I like this. Prodigy said, it's not an isolated issue. Ironic as that to say, men are discouraged from approaching women because of Karens and feminazis. Oh, interesting. At the same time, men are being effing creeps, and the only source of training is that red pill nonsense. Okay, he's saying different things. He's saying that some men are discouraged from approaching women because Karens and feminazis. Probably, yes, that's probably a thing as well. Have a bad interaction with a woman, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that again. That was a really bad thing. But then also talking about how there are creeps who out here and just trying to find women to objectify and to use and to consume. It's interesting. I haven't talked to you guys about like the red pill concept at all. I actually, believe it or not, okay, to rustle some jimmies, okay, I think there's a lot to gain from learning about the red pill. Okay, don't be like, oh, I already know. You can gain value and knowledge and learning, I think, in almost all facets of life. However, I think that it's important to kind of take an amalgamation as much as possible. Don't just take one pill. Look at all the pills. Look at all the trays. Like, why would you just eat one thing and only look at life in one way when there's so many ways to expand your brain so that you can empathize and see how the world works? In my opinion, when you look at these pills or these ways of approaching life, there's strengths and there's weaknesses, there's pros and there's cons. And it's all about balance and temperance and trying to figure out a way that you live in a life in a way that completes you and keeps the people around you safe and happy and healthy. You feel me? For me personally, I am not quick to dismiss any way of living at all, okay? I am very open-minded to learning as much as possible and not just labeling things as black or white or good or bad or right or wrong. I think having that mindset of just casting things into these categories will quickly make you realize that you're missing out on a lot of life. And a lot of the things that you have categorically created in your head as bad are probably things that have just been taught to you by another person that it doesn't necessarily have to be true. Let's go through some more. I'm loving hearing people's opinions about this. On a biological level, men validate their existence through relationships with women. On a social level, men used to have outlets such as men's only clubs, barbershops, where men were encouraged to foster friendships over relationships. Now men can't have either. I don't believe that one. I don't believe that men can't have. I think there's a lot of men only spaces. Plenty of them. You're just not looking, in my opinion. Yes, I would agree that sometimes there have been attacks on men only spaces. Okay. There's been places where we've been trying to kind of remove men out of those places. That's definitely a thing that I agree with, but that does not mean that they do not still exist. You can literally call up your niggas right now and say, hey, let's create a male space. Let's go out to the bar. Let's go play some basketball. Let's go outside and walk. Let's go create a business, right? You can literally create it on your own. Okay, so these spaces still exist. All right, I get what he's saying, but I don't agree with all of it. So Kevin says, having personally experienced gender division and discrimination, I find it incredibly challenging to speak up and seek help during my darkest moments. These experiences create barriers that make vulnerability feel even more difficult. Amen. Freaking men. This is absolutely huge in my opinion. And I think it targets and hits one of the biggest parts about the male loneliness epidemics is not being able to find people at your darkest moments. And when you do, the idea that you now become vulnerable to someone now hurting you is also something that's hard to overcome. For men, and I guess it's also for women as well, but it's not always that easy to find people to confide in. Like, even if you are a man and you want to confide in another man, to be honest, like when I was younger, like I was different from the people in my school. So even if I would wanted to, they were about another life. And so I wasn't like them. It was a different kind of, one of the anime freaking nerds, the people who wanted to go to school in a place that was a little bit more ghetto. I had nobody. I had some close friends, but even then we only knew how to kind of commune when it comes to activities. We weren't taught how to talk. We weren't taught about our emotions. We weren't taught how to explore. A lot of men's conversations are usually, what's up, bro? You good? Yeah, I'm good. How's life? I'm all right. How about you? I'm all right. Well, yeah, I feel you. You good though? You good? You good? You good? You good? And even though it's small, even though those conversations of saying like you good, it's intense. Like I think some women kind of downplay the concept of men's conversations being like kind of basic level, but to be honest, it's powerful. It's strong. It's one of those things where when men say, for example, like it is what it is, it means way more than you can see. So when I feel like it comes to like a lot of like communication, when it comes to men, it's more about feeling. It's more about an understanding. It's more about an unspoken. And unfortunately, that unspoken can reveal a lot of things that need to be spoken. But it doesn't take away the power of the small words that we say. Because when I say you're good, are you good to another fellow guy, it means something very deep. And their answer is also like, yeah, I'm good. And you can pick up a lot on that. That small exchange, you can get a lot from it. Getting out of the blue check marks, too rare said, I think that the vast majority of the male loneliness epidemic is self-imposed. You have men out here just bashing on women or minorities and wondering why nobody wants to be their girlfriend or friends with them. Like I've literally seen tweets on here from men talking about how they can't get a girlfriend, and it's quick scroll through their accounts show that they're an incredibly bigoted and toxic individual, something women and really just any human being with a heart wouldn't like or want to be associated with. And rather than hold themselves accountable and make a change for the better, they take the easy route and blame women, minorities for their behavior or problems. Now, of course, not all men are like this. Some men just struggle talking to women. People are shy and hide themselves away, but it all sort of falls on them to et cetera, et cetera. Yes, and I've seen this from both sides of the spectrum here, right? You've got men who are complaining about being single, complaining about women, right? And then just literally being assholes. Nothing redeeming about them. You wouldn't even want to be friends with this person, even in a platonic way, right? And I've seen the opposite when it comes to women as well. Some of the women on here are like, I can't find a man or whatever, right? Meanwhile, they're out here doing all of these things that are not attractive to anybody, being just ugly people being ugly people and being like, why can't I find people? I think that's a very common thing. You will see it in men and women, but there is a group of men who complain and project and blame other people for their own shortcomings. My guy Seros TV said, the male loneliness epidemic isn't just about being alone. It's about not feeling like you're allowed to say it. Most guys grow up being told directly or indirectly that emotions make you weak, that needing someone is desperate. Yup. That's very, very, very freaking true. That you're taught to kind of suppress your emotions. You're taught to tough it out, tough it out, tough it out. Cry. I was taught to not cry. Growing up, I was taught to not cry. So when I felt sadness and I wanted to cry, no, stop crying. Stop crying. So at a very early age, I repressed and suppressed sadness at a very freaking early age. I know a lot of you guys watching this video and be like, damn, yep, that was me too. I didn't have a say in it either. It was just my upbringing, okay? But I was taught to suppress emotions. You end up with guys who can make everyone laugh, who show up to work, who handle the business, but go home and just sit there. No text, no calls, no real connection, just silence and distractions and this constant sense that they're slowly disappearing and no one notices. A lot of men aren't isolated because they push people away. They're isolated because no one ever came close enough to understand what they were carrying. So this one's very interesting as well. I think this has to do with kind of an anxious attachment here, but the isolation part where we're talking about being alone versus being lonely is the desperate craving and needing to want to be seen as a person. As a guy, we kind of just want to be understood. When we talk with somebody and they listen to us and make us feel understood, Joan is crazy. Women out there, if y'all trying to figure out how do you attract a man, okay, literally just make them feel seen. Literally just make them feel hurt. If they will fold. They will fold immediately. If you treat a man's emotions and you protect it and you don't use it against them, all right, you protect that and you protect that thing like that safe thing and they feel that for you and they feel like that, they're cooked. They're gone. You got them, okay? But just do not use it on them because otherwise then that's going to be a huge retraction. Arrows continue saying no one's looking for pity, just understanding. There's a little space to be human without feeling like they're broken for needing people. That shouldn't be too much to ask, but the truth is that is not fine. It hasn't been fine for a while. A lot of men are hurting in ways they don't have the words for, and even if they did, they wouldn't know who's safe to say them to. That's not weakness. That's a wound that's been ignored for too long. That sounds like ChatGPT. Is that ChatGPT? Exactly. It's not just the loneliness, it's the silence around it. Men aren't taught how to open up and they suffer quietly and call it strength, right? So we're not equipped. We're not equipped. And then when we're not equipped, we end up hurting people. We hurt ourselves. We hurt our girlfriends. We hurt our loved ones. We hurt our wife. When we are not equipped as men, as human beings, we end up in some kind of way paying for it. And it's not because we want to, it's because we just don't know what to do. We do not have the tools sometimes. Let me be frank. I don't want to put all of this on ignorance, okay? There is a lot of men who are very, very aware of how they are acting, okay? They know exactly what they are doing. They are self-aware and they just do not care. There's a lot of evil out there. There's a lot of predators. There's a lot of mean people. There's a lot of people not out in your best interests, okay? So that exists. I'm never going to put that away. And I'm never actually going to say the whole not all men situation because there's enough of these guys that are dangerous that are also creating victims that we can't ignore. That's why I never kind of get upset when someone says, oh man, I'm like, yeah, I get it. You want to say that's short. There's enough men out there that kind of scares you. It's like the population of dangerous people are so big. It's so big that you unfortunately have to kind of categorize them in this in order to be safe. I have to assume that it's all men just so that I can protect myself out here on these streets. I get it. I think it's important for men who know that don't fall into that category to not fall into that trap where they feel like they're talking about that it's not on you. That's not on you. Okay. It's about practicing empathy and recognizing from their point of view, like specifically women, how they're impacted by a male dominated culture. It goes very deep and that's why empathy is very important. But again, as women too as well, and as men as well, it's important to try to connect with the niggas who are trying. There's a lot of men out here who are trying, right? But they're still being labeled and put into these buckets, okay? But they want to not be, they're trying. They just don't know what to do. And then with enough villainy, with enough disconnection, with a lack of empathy from the other way around, then I think there's a lot of men who just end up joining the dark side simply because they've been ostracized from it. It's like there's no other option but the dark side. Looking for some women's opinions here. We got here Mirth Mauser saying toxic masculinity and misogyny affect us all negatively, including men. Genuinely, it must absolutely suck that the world holds up such unreachable ideas of what being a man is. It's really sad how that sometimes makes hurt men take out these frustrations on women. Like I was saying, casualties. As a man, when you're trying to be a man, and if you suppress certain emotions or you're not self-aware enough, then you will hurt people, your friends, your family, your kids, your loved ones, women. everyone gets impacted by it. She goes on to say, I guess the best advice I can give lonely men who feel like they'll never find love is just find a friend. Genuinely finding common ground with a girl as a friend and not trying to have a further goal with her will grow you as a person. From there, things will get easier. Like for me, within the past few years, I've befriended a lot more men. It helped me understand them, helped me grow as a person, one step at a time, okay? We're all humans. This is huge. And this is something that's very, very difficult for men to do who have been raised in a society that basically tells them that when you find a woman of attraction, then now they are potential mates. Okay. What do you mean friends? This person might be my potential wife if I like them. I've had conversations with several guys who say they don't see the point in actually having friendships with women. What is the point? What is the gain? There is no value. I've been placed on this earth to procreate. And that's it. So if I have any kind of woman in my life, what purpose does this serve me? And it's a very scary thing to realize that a lot of people have this view. And the reason why I think this view is a bit problematic is because then men are only looking at women at a certain way. Okay? When you only look at women as an object for procreation, you're dehumanizing them. Because women are more than just people who give birth. They're more than just wives, okay? They're your sister. They're your mother. They're your daughter. Women are many things, right? So when you are saying, no, this woman only serves this spectrum here, so why would I have a friendship by being just friends with a girl and not trying to smash? You can learn more about women. That's the reason why, like for me, for example, I grew up in a household that was mainly women. I understood women a lot easier, at a younger age. I got kind of lucky with this. I understood them. I understood a little bit more how they worked. So when I was around women, it was easier to interact with them. I think a lot of them felt more safe with me because I picked up on the freaking cues. I can even tell the cycles that they were freaking on. So I became so in tune with it that it made it easier for me to connect with women and for women to connect with me. That's one of the values of having women in your space. But when you don't have none of them, or when you're not exposed to humans, other way around, and you miss out on a lot. More women. I feel like men deserve better. I have guys in my life that are really nice, so it always confused me as to why women hate men. I am a woman, by the way, and I never really understood the hate towards men. They are humans like us and have a place in this world. Love your videos, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate it. I agree and appreciate the love, right? It goes a long way to just be like, I love men. It goes a long way. It's like, well, thank you. Appreciate that. I love women, But to kind of understand the other side of the story here, a lot of women hate women because they've been victims of it. There's a lot of victims out there of women right now that, based on society, as you've seen, they're going through a lot. I know we're only looking at the noun, right? But there's still a lot of women, and to this day, that are being impacted by what was probably a lot of misogyny when it comes to our upbringing in these cultures, okay? If you look at it at a worldwide perspective, right, a lot of women's rights are still trying to be earned. The patriarchy, a lot of women are still being suppressed. A lot of women are still being hated. A lot of women are still being used. A lot of them are still being viewed as non-humans. They still exist. So you have to understand people's pains, right? Even if you're not the one causing it. It usually takes, in my opinion, for a man to kind of really, really start to understand a woman is when you see a woman in your life get impacted by a man. When you know a woman in your life that has been like hurt by a man, it makes it much more easier for you to understand what men can be capable of. Not all men, but how men are capable of. That's why as men, we become protective of our daughters and our sisters because we know how niggas move. We know how niggas move. So since we know, there are men who hate men because we know how we move. It's wild out here. So I've been looking for some of the non-believers who said the male loneliness epidemic is a bunch of bullshit. If you're a good person and not a dickhead, eventually you will find someone that loves you for who you are. This idea that there's an epidemic is just an excuse for men to not improve themselves and their mental health. Dang. Okay. So male loneliness epidemic doesn't exist. If you're a good person and you're not an asshole, you will find someone that loves you for who you are. I call a cap on that one though. Okay. It's not that simple, right? Just being a nice guy or just being a good person or just not be, that does not, you also have to go out there. You have to expose yourself. You have to try. You can't just exist and someone will find you. You have to put yourself in places to be found. The idea that there's an epidemic is just an excuse for men to not improve themselves and their mental health is a very absolute statement that I think is very unhealthy, very general, and that I do not agree with. I think that sentence right there is just very dangerous. It's very generalizing for a very complicated issue. But you're giving that as your opinion. I'm going to just have to say that I respectfully disagree. Okay, let's end it here. I swear I could go. There's so many replies. I can't get to them all. This one was interesting. Arthur saying a lot of the loneliness epidemic isn't loneliness. It's just being alone. I 1,000% agree with this. This one is one of the biggest proponents, in my opinion, that a lot of people, both men and women, need to learn. There's a big difference. For introverts, you guys probably understand that you like being alone, okay? In your own space with nobody around you. Let's think about the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, there was a lot of people who was like, let's freaking go by myself. Don't have to go to the outside world. They were hyped. They spent those 4 years reading, surfing the internet, relaxing, chilling. They were happy just being alone with themselves, living the life with themselves. They were alone. These people were alone. They were isolated from the outside world, but they were not lonely. In retrospect, the pandemic hit a lot of people in a really bad way because people were lonely. They could not see their friends or their family or meet other people. And they were stuck and inside a house by themselves with a person they didn't want to be with a person they did not want to be with. They were stuck with themselves. And it's important for people to understand that there's a lot of people who hate themselves, that do not like themselves. They're trying to like themselves, but they need other people because they don't want themselves. So they specifically reach out to other people. They feel lonely because they can't be by themselves because they hate being by themselves. This is huge. And this is something that I can cover like in a very single subject kind of type video about alone versus loneliness. But if you are in a place where you do not like being with yourself, that is a very strong core issue that requires, in my opinion, therapy, reading, and knowledge, and self-awareness and understanding. Because a lot of people don't even recognize that they hate themselves. And it's been bred into them either with parenting or religion, and it hurts and it sucks. But the worst part is just not knowing that you are in that space. And then when you are in that space, not knowing how to undo it. Loving yourself, in my opinion, I think is one of the most powerful, like top 3 things that you can do in your life to improve the quality of your life. But it's also one of the most difficult things to do when you are not already in that space. And even if you are in that space, continuing to do so and growing in that can be difficult as well. So anyway, that's all I have for this episode of Lay It Omni. You've just been laid. Moral of the story: subscribe to the second channel. That's right. All this has been one big plug for you guys to come subscribe to my second channel that I got going on. I haven't dropped a video. It's called Ask Omni. It's a place where I'll be answering questions from everyone about what's on their minds. I'm really excited for it, and I think it'll be a healthy place to kind of give guidance to both men and women about kind of what we're doing and how we're experiencing life. The channel should be up and probably within the next 30 days. I'm still working on some things in the background, but no, I think the true moral of the story is that I think we have to come together, bros, homies, women's. We have to come together. We have to unite. We've got to stop dividing. Yes, we are different. Yes, we are different. But if we are to fix this thing, we have to come together and try to make an understanding and sit at the table, even though there's a lot of pain being received on both sides. That, in my opinion, is the only way that we heal and grow. Let me know what you guys think about the male loneliness epidemic in the comments below, okay? And be on your best behavior, all right? Try to be nice. Try to be good, okay, man? I know y'all are hurting, but try. That's all I'm asking. If you guys wanted to dive deeper into any of the subjects, you can also let me know in the comments below. Let me know how you feel about the video. I love you guys. This has been fun. Hopefully, I guess I don't get roasted for any of this. And I'm still open to a lot of interpretations, a lot of new information, okay? I'm not a person who is stagnant with my beliefs. I'm learning and I'm reading every single day. So I will probably grow and learn more and more and more as these discussions happen. I love you guys. Y'all take it easy. Brush your teeth. Don't get halitosis and floss because I can smell your breath from across the screen right now. Y'all, let's take it easy. Peace.